My name is Chris Long, and I am an architectural SEO manager at Go Fish Digital. Before I start, I just want to let you know that if you go to my Twitter here, Go Fish Chris, you can actually download the slide share, which I'll be sharing afterward. And there's a few slides I talk about where there's external resources that might be helpful to kind of gain once you download the slides. So go to my Twitter, and I'll tweet that out after the presentation here. So what we're going to be talking about today is how you can drive more authority to your website without having to go out and build more links. This is based on the long-standing SEO kind of best practice that building more links to your website is going to drive more authority, right? And we kind of get stuck in the mindset of, oh, we need to build more links, we need to build more links, we need to build more links. And we try to build links kind of as quickly as possible. I think one of the things that we don't think about enough is once we've built links, how do we best utilize that equity? So what I'll talk about today is kind of my thought process for analyzing a website and basically utilizing the links that you already have to improve your authority. So to start, I kind of want to start with a long-standing truth that I believe about SEO. It's not necessarily a very popular opinion, but I do believe it to be true from time to time. That truth is link building sucks. Plain and simple, for me, as a technical SEO, someone who's always trying to scale everything and do everything as efficiently as possible, link building can be kind of a pain. And I kind of want to demonstrate this through the more traditional link building model, where you might create a piece of content and try to pitch that content to different journalists in exchange for backlinks. So if we were going to start this process, we might start with a brainstorm, right? We know that Bitcoins are a really hot topic right now, so we might want to start to create a piece of content around Bitcoins. The plan being we want to pitch that to journalists later and get backlinks from them. So to start, we might use a tool like BuzzSumo, which you see here, and we might type in the word Bitcoins. We then might try to analyze what content's doing well, what's getting a lot of social shares, and kind of break down the aspects of that content that's going viral. After that, if we're part of a content team, or maybe just an agency team, we might even sit down together and have a brainstorm, right? We might all take an hour out of our day to sit down, talk about what the best Bitcoin-related ideas will be, and kind of hash out different things there. My ideas might all get nixed at some point, but at the end of our brainstorm, we're feeling pretty good, right? And what we decide to do is create a Bitcoin map. We want to map out some data about Bitcoin and overlay it on a map of the US, or a map of the globe. So after we decide on a Bitcoin map, we then need to go out and collect data. So we might do user surveys, we might just poll some people in the office, we might try to figure out different third-party resources to get our data, but there needs to be some form of data collection. After the data collection happens, that's oftentimes going to get moved to a designer to actually map out our Bitcoin map. And we can see what the process the end result looks like here. Side note, this is an actual content campaign we ran at Go Fish Digital. Essentially what we did was we mapped out the average price to mine one Bitcoin in different countries across the globe. So we have our Bitcoin map. We're feeling pretty good about it. Now we've spent a lot of time and resources just to get to this point with brainstorming ourselves, doing a group brainstorm, multiple phases of design, but we're here and we're excited. Now we need to get client approval or approval from some third-party stakeholder. So we pitch it to our client, and they say, we really like this content map. However, it's not branded enough. We like a lot of branding in our content. They ask, can we put a really, really big logo on it? So we kind of roll our eyes, and we say, OK, no problem. And we put a really, really big logo on the content map. Kind of obscures the data a little bit, but it's there. The client's happy, we're happy, and we're ready to start pitching. So we start sending this content to different journalists, right? We need people to actually cover our content in order to gain backlinks. So when we start to pitch, we pitch like crazy, right? We send 50 outreach emails out. We pitch the Next Web. We pitch Mashable. We pitch different Bitcoin-related websites, all saying, please cover our content, please cover our content, please cover our content. And we pitch for a day or two incessantly, and after a while, we patiently wait. We can continually monitor our inbox, and nothing happens, right? No one emails us back, no responses at all. So we're a little bummed out at this point, but we don't get discouraged. In fact, we actually double down on our efforts. Instead of emailing 50 journalists, we go out and we email 100 different journalists, right? Saying, please cover my content. I really need you to cover my content. Please give me backlinks to our content. So after we've sent 100 outreach emails, we finally get a response from a lone journalist. That journalist says, hey, I really like your content, but the branding is a little bit excessive right now. Would you mind removing that really big logo on the content campaign? So once again, we get a little bit frustrated because there's another kind of obstacle we've hit. But we say, oh, okay, and we try to ask our client to see if we can remove the logo. So we take our piece of content, we push it back to the client, and we say, hey, would you mind removing this really big logo from the content? And there's multiple back and forth. They really don't want to do it, but we need them to in order for our backlink. So after a few different discussions, they agree to remove the logo from their content. So then we have to give this map back to the designer again, right? So they remove the logo, the content's looking much, much better. Now this has to go back to the author again. So we send this back to the author and they say, great, content looks good, but I have a little bit of a backlog right now. I can probably publish this in about 2 weeks worth of time. So we're just getting really antsy, right? We can smell the links around the corner, but it's going to take a little bit more time to get. So we patiently wait, and then on the go live date, the author finally publishes the article, sends us the link. We take a look at the link, inspect element, and it's a no follow. And we're really frustrated, right? We spent a lot of time creating the content, pitching the content, going through multiple phases of design. We turn into this guy. We start scaring other people around us. We're mad. And I'm obviously exaggerating when I talk about this process, but to me, what I think I'm trying to illustrate here is that pitching content and earning links this way takes a lot of time and resources and effort. We've actually had really good success pitching content like this at Go Fish Digital, but it does take a lot of time and resources, and it involves juggling multiple people's agendas, right? So instead of always trying to go out and build more links, I think something we don't ask ourselves enough is, how can we best utilize the links that are already pointing to the site? Chances are, if you're a website that's been around for any amount of time, you've already built some backlinks, and you might not be utilizing those backlinks most efficiently. So today what I'm going to talk about is how you can get the most from the equity already built by these links. If the work is already done for you, there's pretty much no reason to go out and do even more work if you already have a good amount of authority built. Obviously, building more links is always going to help, but sometimes building more links isn't going to help if you're not using that authority efficiently as well. So there's a few reasons why we might want to do it this way. One is you're going to get more value for the time you put into it. Let's say I want to build 5 links to a client site the traditional way. That might mean I have to send at least 5 outreach emails, but it's probably going to be a lot more at the end of the day when you factor in that most outreach doesn't get replied to. However, contrast that with if I find a broken link on the site that already has 5 backlinks pointing to it. One redirection, which takes about 10 to 30 seconds worth of work, is going to get you that 5 backlinks more instantly. Second reason you might want to do it this way is there's less third-party reliance. There's still going to be some in the tactics I'm going to talk about today, but some of these can be achieved by just an SEO with a redirection plugin and maybe coordination with a developer, and maybe you might need some client approvals. However, it's going to completely eliminate juggling 50 different journalist schedules around, interfacing with the designer multiple times, collecting the data, all of that stuff. There's generally less third-party reliance, which is going to result in a more efficient process overall. And the last reason we might want to do this is that it's going to help improve other SEO factors as well. The implementations I'll talk about today will help with more than just your link equity and authority, but they'll also help improve things such as user experience, Google crawling and indexing, and internal linking. So by doing these things, you're going to be killing 2 birds with 1 stone in terms of implementing other SEO initiatives. So I'm going to talk about 2 primary tactics today. The first being reclaiming lost link value. How can you get value that's already been lost back? The second thing I'll talk about is link equity distribution. Once we have as much value back to the site as possible, how can we distribute that throughout the entire website as efficiently as possible? So like I said, the first thing I'll talk about is reclaiming lost value. And I always like to start with a very simple tactic, and that is run your domain through a tool like Ahrefs or Mozilla's Link Explorer. Sort by your pages with the most amount of links, and then find which pages are returning 404 errors. This provides you a highly targeted list of backlinks to redirect over to immediately gain more authority from. So for example, it's probably pretty hard to see, but this client right here, if they only redirect this first URL, that's going to be 47 additional backlinks to their site and the equity from those backlinks with about 30 seconds worth of work total. If they went really bold and redirected this entire list of links, it would probably take about 15 to 30 minutes worth of work, and they would probably get around 100 to 150 more backlinks to their site and the equity from those links. So I'd highly recommend running your website through a tool like Ahrefs and just see which links are returning 404 errors, especially with any backlinks pointed to them. If you want to take this a step further, and I recommend you do, you can also use a tool like the Wayback Machine. I'm sure many of us have used the Wayback Machine. It's always fun to go back and see what the first design of our website looked like at some point. But what most people, or some people, don't know about the Wayback Machine is that it actually keeps historical records of your old URLs. So if you have a website that's been through multiple iterations and haven't redirected that content over, the Wayback Machine can be a way to surface it. So if you actually download my slides, there's an article by Patrick Stocks, one of the organizers of the Raleigh SEO meetup. And what he talks about is how you can essentially use the Wayback Machine's API to get a list of all the historical URLs that it keeps of a particular site. The kind of final product looks like this. So on the left here, you can see the actual list of backlinks you'll get in the export. That will probably need to be cleaned up a little bit. But then what you can do is you can run that list of links through a tool like Screaming Frog, see which ones are returning 404 errors, and then redirect those URLs back to your main site. It's going to help you reclaim any lost link equity there, and it's just generally good for user experience. If any users are still landing on your old pages, they'll be redirected over to your new site. So finding broken links and redirecting them is a way to quickly gain a lot of link equity back, generally for not that much work put into the process. And we've had some pretty good success at Go Fish Digital redirecting legacy sites over. This is a ranking trend line from one of our clients where we redirected a legacy site. Essentially, the bar graphs represents total rankings over time. You can see in May of 2017, here's where we did a redirection of their legacy site. It's probably the only really significant change we made to the site within that time, aside from some other smaller optimizations. And you can see immediately in June, July, and August, rankings increased fairly significantly. And this is just from redirecting their legacy site over. And what's interesting is it's not as if this site had a bunch of really high authority backlinks pointing to it. It actually had some medium to lower quality links pointing to it, some which we actually had to disavow first. But you can see just from redirecting their legacy site, we were able to actually significantly improve rankings throughout time. So the next thing I want to talk about is auditing your robots file. For those of you who don't know, what your robots file does is it tells Google what it can crawl on your website or what it can't crawl. It can also tell other search engine directories the same directives as well. So most commonly what it's used for, though, is we want Google to crawl these directories in the site. We don't want Google to crawl these directories on the site. So a lot of webmasters use it for kind of controlling the crawl of their site and controlling the indexing of their site. What a lot of webmasters don't understand is that when you block something via the robots file, you're actually cutting all of the link equity to those pages. So you can see here, I want you to look at line 2. You can see that this client blocked all of the links, or all of Googlebot, from accessing their guide pages. To give you a brief history, their guide pages are essentially pages set up by their independent sales reps that were mini websites within their site. Those mini websites, though, were duplicates. So because they were trying to avoid duplicate content issues, they blocked Googlebot from accessing that content via the robots file. It actually made a lot of sense at the time. But what we found was when we ran these guide pages through a tool like Ahrefs, we saw that they were blocking over 3,000 backlinks to the site. So essentially, that's 3,000 links that they weren't getting the equity from that they were blocking via the robots file. So simply by removing that command and then combining with other directives such as no index, we were able to serve both goals. Essentially, we kept that content out of Google's index while getting the link equity back from the site. As it turns out, their sales reps were very highly motivated to go out and build backlinks to their site. So they essentially found a way to crowdsource link building, but weren't reclaiming any of the link value they were getting from them. So highly recommend taking a look at your robots file, running some of those URLs through your backlink analysis tools, and just see if you're blocking equity to them. And if you are, figure out a way that you can remove that line from the robots file while still keeping that content out of the index. Next thing I want to talk about is 302 versus 301 redirects. I don't want to make it a huge point of this conversation because it's a topic that's been beaten to death in the SEO community. However, I do think it's relevant because we believe that 302 redirects still do dilute link equity. So I would recommend that you run your website through a tool like Ahrefs. It's basically the only tool I'm using here for some reason. And see which URLs you're pushing through 302 redirects. And if you are pushing any 302 redirects at all, ask yourself why they're 302, and if you don't have a good reason, I'd recommend switching them to 301. So to essentially give you a quick background on the history of this and how webmasters have thought about status codes as they pertain to link equity, this has been the general thought process. On the left here represents status codes, on the right represents the amount of link equity they pass. 200 status codes have traditionally been thought to pass 100% equity. 301 status codes have been thought to pass around 85% equity. Essentially, the website Wayfair did a study a while ago where they found that by passing a bunch of 301 redirects, their organic traffic was down by about 15%, leading them to believe that 301 redirects only passed about 85% equity. 302 redirects have traditionally been thought of as passing no link equity, right? We want to redirect users, but Googlebot stays and doesn't pass any of the equity to the destination URL. This is how webmasters have thought. I will say that the rules have changed, especially regarding these two, but I think the general principles still apply in terms of preference. 200 status codes are going to be better than 301. 301 is going to be better than 302 most of the time. So the reason this kind of all got shaken up was a cryptic tweet that Google sent out a while ago. They basically came out and said, it doesn't matter whether you pass 301 redirects, 302 redirects, 307 redirects, they all pass full link equity. Using a fairly recent case study, we found this not to necessarily be the case. This is an example of another client site where we influenced their migration. Essentially, what this client did was they had a big website migration where they did redirect everything over. However, instead of using 301 redirects, the only difference is they used 302. So we talked to them for a while, and they noticed their website traffic was down significantly year over year, ranging about 40%. What we suggested was they switched the 301 redirects to 302. In February of 2018, they were finally able to implement that, and we saw significant increases in rankings. Pretty much from the redirection date, this bucket right here, this bucket of green link, or bucket of green keywords, this represents first page keywords. And we can see that the amount of first page keywords significantly increased in about 2 months. I think between February and April, there were 25 more keywords ranking on the first page. That's, once again, one of the only significant changes that was made. So once again, if you have 302 redirects and don't have a very good reason to be using them, I would always prefer using 301. 302 redirects might pass some equity, but we believe that 301 redirects do pass more and are almost always going to be preferential. So the last thing I'll talk about with regards to reclaiming lost equity is eliminating redirect chains. For those of you who don't know what a redirect chain is, you pass a redirect multiple times. A redirects to B, which redirects to C, which redirects to D, so on and so forth. So this can be problematic for essentially 2 reasons. One, if you believe that 301 redirects dilute value any, you're diluting value for the further along the chain you go, right? B will be worth less than A, C will be worth less than A and B, so on and so forth. The other problem that happens is if this chain is really long, Googlebot's probably not going to read through the end of it. If this redirect chain is 10 hops instead of 3 hops, Googlebot's probably not going to read through the entire chain. If it can't read through the entire chain, it can't pass equity to your destination page. So we recommend cleaning these redirect chains up as much as possible. You can crawl your site with Screaming Frog, and they actually have a redirect chain report you can use. And that can kind of help you see if your website has a lot of redirect chains. I won't get too much into it, but generally these redirect chains, the culprit is in your htaccess files or global configuration files. Essentially, whatever is defining your website's default redirects, that's the cause of redirect chains a lot of times. So if you're seeing a lot of these, what I would recommend doing is taking a little bit of time to analyze the pattern of what's happening in the chain. And once you have that information, send that over to your developers, if you have website developers, and ensure that and ask them to kind of rewrite their rules, your redirection rules, so they're a bit more efficient. Typically, you can rewrite some htaccess language to basically shorten the chains up so we can ensure that more equity is getting pushed to the final site. So that's all I had to talk about with regards to reclaiming lost link value. What I want to talk about now is improving equity distribution. Once we have as much equity as we possibly can pushed back to the main site, how can we evenly distribute that? How can we evenly distribute it throughout the entire site? So, like I said, I like to start with a simple example to start. And this is a report that I love to pull from Screaming Frog. Essentially, one of the things we want to do is eliminate internal 301 redirects. If you think that 301 redirects dilute link equity any, we want to eliminate as many internal 301 redirects as possible. Essentially, page A, if it's linking to page B through an internal 301 redirect, isn't passing full value, so your website isn't communicating as efficiently as possible. Generally, when you crawl your website, you're going to see a lot of internal 301 redirects. They're just something that happen naturally. So what I like to do is try to figure out the most efficient way to clean up as many as possible with the least amount of work. So I do it by using this report. I crawl the website with Screaming Frog. I then filter by the amount of internal 301 redirects. I then sort that report by the amount of inlinks. So you can see here, this is actually sorted by the amount of inlinks. What you'll then find is the URLs with the most instances of 301 redirects. So you can see those top 3 URLs. It's about 200. The first one has about 200 internal redirects. The second 2 have about 100. And then there's a significant drop off where it goes to about 19 or 20. So if we take time, we might want to think about why these URLs are so top-heavy in inlinks. Why are we passing internal 301 redirects so many times on those URLs, but not any others? Generally, the answer to that is that you're internally 301 redirecting through your website navigation or some sort of templated element. You're doing an internal 301 redirect through the navigation, a footer, or a sidebar that's repeated on a lot of different pages. So the good news is you can actually clean those up really quickly. Typically, you only have to change the internal links in 3 different places. And by doing that, by just making 3 adjustments to the site, you'll stop over 400 instances of link equity dilution and better distribute it throughout the website. So crawl Screaming Frog, or crawl your website with Screaming Frog, look for pages that have a lot of internal 301 redirects, and try to clean up the highest priority ones. Another good way to improve link equity distribution is to simply visualize it. This is another great article written by Patrick Stocks of the Raleigh SEO Meetup. And what he does is break down a way to visualize your internal page rank. So what you're taking a look at here is a website's internal link equity. The different colors represent similar types of pages. So that green section right here, that might represent your website's blog. This pink section here might represent your service pages. The lines between this content represent the individual internal links. So overall, this website is evenly distributing equity because there's a lot of lines flowing between the different content types. However, if this blog section was really far removed to the right and there were only 1 or 2 links pointing to it, that might indicate to us we're not distributing equity efficiently to our blog. And then we might want to brainstorm different ways to work that into the architecture of the website. Maybe we just add a blog post, maybe we just link to our blog in our website navigation, and that helps better push link equity to that section of the site. So once again, if you download this presentation, you'll be able to read that article and see how you can do it. Essentially, you can do it with a tool. You can do it with Screaming Frog and a tool called Gephi. That's a statistical analysis tool. As well, when you pull this report, what you'll also see is this table that actually provides you a value of link equity at the URL level. So you'll be able to see how much link equity you're pushing to individual URLs. So this is a real report we pulled for a client. And what you can notice is that the very top page, the Contact Us page, has almost 3 times the amount of equity being pushed to it as any other page on the site. Now, obviously, this isn't an exact representation, it's just a guess, but it can still help tell you where you might be internally linking a little bit too much. So what we found with this client is they were linking to their contact page a lot on the site, so we recommended kind of reducing the amount of internal links to better distribute equity to some of the core pages. Obviously, the contact page isn't one we'd really need to be ranking for SEO, so we want to better distribute that equity to other pages on the site. Next thing I want to talk about with regards to improving link equity distribution is adding a mega menu. Essentially, what a mega menu is when you hover over the stores, kind of drop down right here, you can see the secondary internal links to kind of deeper pages within the site. This better helps distribute equity to all of those pages because essentially every single page on the site is distributing equity to those pages. So this client, they're a coupon aggregator. They want to rank for terms such as advanced auto parts coupons, hotels.com coupons, so on and so forth. By adding this mega menu, we've basically pushed equity to some of their most important pages on the site through the navigation. And as well, this not only helps improve link equity distribution, it also helps improve things such as user experience. Users might want to be able to see might want to be able to access kind of quick links to some of their most important SEO landing pages on the site. Another thing you can do is you want to make sure you don't only think of your link equity goals when you do this. You want to make sure you're kind of balancing user experience along with your equity kind of goals. But typically, if you think about this, there's generally a smart way to balance the tool when adding a mega menu. So if you have pages that should be linked to more within your site, and that will be key for users to access quickly, I'd recommend adding a secondary navigation or a mega menu and ask your developer to kind of help you implement that. For the same client, another kind of initiative we did to better distribute equity was adding templatized internal links. So this is their hotels.com page where users can actually get their different hotels.com offerings. What we've added here is this similar store section where users can actually get quick links to similar stores within the site to hotels.com. So that list contains links to Best Western coupons, Booking.com coupons, and other travel-related coupons. We've added hotels.com in our mega menu, so we're distributing link equity there. What this does is it helps us distribute link equity to even deeper pages within the site. As well, what this does is it not only helps with our link equity goals and distributing link equity to pages that might not be getting it, it also helps improve user experience. Users might want to see other travel-related coupon offers as well when they're on hotels.com. As well, it also helps improve Google's crawling and indexing. Before that right sidebar of pages, it might have only had about 2 or 3 paths for Googlebot to access the content. By templatizing that and including it in every travel page within the site, we now created about 30 to 50 new paths. So you can see how better distributing link equity is also helping improve your other SEO initiatives as well. Final thing I want to talk about with regards to equity distribution is adding a site-wide breadcrumb. Essentially, a site-wide breadcrumb is a horizontal list of internal links that shows users where they're at within the navigation of a website. This can help naturally distribute link equity quicker to pages that might not have received it because it might be kind of hard sometimes to actually naturally work these into the architecture of the site, so a breadcrumb does this naturally. And once again, we're not just helping improve our link equity distribution goals, we're helping user experience as they might want to know where they're at within the hierarchy of a site. As well, adding a site-wide breadcrumb can help Google's crawling and indexing because it can help Google understand how your different pages interrelate to each other. It can help Google understand what your parent pages are, what your child pages are, so on and so forth. And anytime you can make Google's crawl more efficient and help Google get a better understanding of your site, that's almost always going to be good for SEO. So that's all I have for you today. Once again, if you go to my Twitter. I'll tweet out this presentation at the end, so you can see kind of a list of, you can actually see the SlideShare presentation and then download some of the external resources as well. But I hope you guys walk away from here with some kind of ideas for how you can improve your website authority without building any more backlinks. It is possible to actually help build more authority to your site and distribute it better. So not only do you gain more authority to your site, you help your backlink initiatives in the future, right? When you do go out and build a bunch of backlinks, if you've done your equity distribution tasks right, you'll better distribute it to all your key pages for SEO. So that's all I have to talk about, but I'd be happy to take any questions at this time.